It's been another year where animated movies have graced movie theaters and streaming services, and as usual, I have a lot of good ones that range from science fiction to fantasy to even a music documentary. They manage to show the wealth of imagination from these filmmakers, and I had quite a bit of fun watching many of those on this list. So here are my personal favorite animated films of 2024. Piece by Piece. They are probably documentaries about every musician under the sun, so the decision to have Pharrell Williams' life be told of Lego at least allowed for something a little different from the genre. What impressed me here is the extent of which they use Lego to visually depict his career. You might expect at least archival photographs and clips to use real footage, but even those are recreated with Lego. Director Morgan Neville and the animation team were able to find clever ways to depict the interview subjects and their stories with Lego, and that even added some additional humor to the mix. Watching Piece by Piece, there is that feeling of using those sets to craft stories and an understanding of the toy's lasting appeal. When Universal acquired the rights to make Lego movies, this was probably the furthest idea from anyone's mind of what they would do with them. However, watching the film, it's clear why Pharrell Williams felt a connection with those blocks and felt they were the best way to express how he feels his life is gone. That Christmas, a feel-good holiday movie, director Simon Otto and writers Richard Curtis and Peter Sauter imbue the story with the right spirit as we follow the various child protagonists and their parents on this snowy Christmas day. There's a likability to many of them, and the storylines are properly developed. The best of the subplots involves twins who learn the meaning of naughty and nice, and how it's not so cut and dry. The story of a boy whose mother works on Christmas manages to not fall into the usual tropes of the workaholic parent device by showing him understanding his mother's responsibilities, even with his occasional disappointment. The subplot that children who take advantage of the parents being gone works as a child wish fulfillment, and we also see a few of the consequences of this. Meanwhile, Santa Claus becomes an enjoyable aspect of the movie, nicely voiced by Brian Cox as a rare non-grumpy character. The film features a nice assortment of humorous moments, including some runaway turkeys and even a couple of lighthearted jabs at Curtis's famous Christmas movie Love Actually. That Christmas winds up a nice holiday treat. Moana 2. Following up the adventure of the Polynesian oceanic explorer, this becomes a solid follow-up with a number of creative sequences and fun new characters. The other people who join Moana on her journey lead to a great dynamic between them, which allows it to at least differentiate from the first film in certain ways. A standout ends up being Lotto, who provides plenty of funny moments courtesy of Rose Matafeo's voice work. The filmmakers put together a lot of exciting action sequences, and the creature designers especially deserve praise for some of the new animals Moana encounters in the ocean this time. The soundtrack features a number of memorable tunes, my favorite being Moana's I Want song, Beyond. Meanwhile, What Could Be Better Than This and Get Lost have their own energetic beats to them. The animators follow suit with the visuals on both the environments and characters, and we do see the time that's passed since the events of the first film. Moana's bond with a younger sister is especially nice to see. There will very likely be a third movie, but this works as an enjoyable middle chapter and a nice way to check in on this world and the characters. Transformers 1. A prequel looking at the origins of Optimus Prime and Megatron, this movie explores some intriguing themes about the class system of the world the transforming robots reside in. The film is able to give them individual personalities and each become interesting in their own way, especially Megatron. The way he and Optimus drift apart does make for compelling drama, and it's handled the right level of weight. Meanwhile, Bumblebee becomes a hilarious scene stealer, avoiding falling into the trap of becoming an irritating comic relief, something that could have easily happened with the wrong execution. Josh Cooley directs the action sequences in such a way that we can tell what's going on, even as all these colorful robots are fighting across the screen. The team at Industrial Light and Magic did a great job at depicting this version of Cybertron and its various areas. Transformers 1 is structured in a way that both those who are hardcore fans and those who've had trouble getting into prior entries in the franchise will get something out of it. Orion in the Dark. This film finds so many creative avenues to depict the dark and other aspects of the nighttime when children are asleep. The film also explores the concept of fear through its lead protagonist Orion and displays both understandable ones and more extreme cases. The dynamic he has with the dark is a lot of fun, and director Sean Chalmers is able to delve into the more serious parts well. What I particularly appreciated was its message about the necessity for darkness, and that there are advantages to that over constantly having the lights on, with particular aim towards light pollution and the effect that has. Another aspect that stands out about the film is that Charlie Kaufman is credited on the screenplay, and while it's uncertain how much of his material made it into the finished movie, you can definitely spot a number of fingerprints if you're familiar with his work. Like his other projects, Orion in the Dark plays with time and story structure, especially in the third act, and it goes in some unexpected directions. It all adds to a well-done animated film with a lot of clever visual ideas and concepts. The Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim. A Japanese animated prequel to Peter Jackson's Middle-earth movies, I found the story presented here and the themes on war to be quite compelling. It managed to delve into the egos that can happen when two countries go head-to-head in battle for one reason or another, and how that stubbornness has an effect on the population. In the middle of all this is Hera, the daughter of King Helm, who tries to protect her own people and deal with the actions of both her father and the movie's central villain, Wolf. I found her arc to be just as interesting, and she becomes a fascinating protagonist worth following. Director Kenji Kamiyama mounts some spectacular battle sequences, owing a lot to what Jackson accomplished with his films, while also adding his own touch. The movie has the feel of classic medieval literature, owing to Jackson's intention of making his Lord of the Rings films more akin to historical epics rather than necessarily fantasy stories. The recreations of locations in the background art and the use of Howard Shore's iconic themes further add to the movie's appeal, as an expansion of Middle-earth that delves into the history of Helm's Deep and those who went there years before Gandalf and a couple of hobbits. The War of the Rohirrim is a worthy addition to that franchise. Kung Fu Panda 4. The movies centering on Po the Panda's role as the Dragon Warrior have been incredibly entertaining, and I was thoroughly charmed by this new chapter. Pairing him with a thief who constantly gives him trouble was a particularly inspired idea, and I really liked the dynamic they had. There's an interesting contrast between the personalities of Po and Zen the Fox, and Awkwafina particularly brings a lot of feistiness to the role. Po remains a likable hero, while also learning that he may not be as famous as he assumed, while Zen, even though resourceful, also comes to learn the hurt she has caused for many of her actions. Thus, both characters have a strong development. I also enjoyed the subplot with Poe's two fathers as they travel across China. The filmmakers did a great job of the locations and expanding the world, including a chameleon with the ability to mimic anyone. The action sequences continue to be directed with a lot of energy and show a lot of creativity. Capping the movie with Jack Black performing a cover of Baby One More Time was an especially good move. With the success of Kung Fu Panda 4, I'm sure we'll be seeing more movies with that martial arts performing panda, and I'll certainly look forward to them. The Wad Robot. Chris Sanders has often made movies about the connection between people and animals, and with this film he shows how a robot might become a motherly figure, and the result is quite a lovely film. I liked how much of this movie consists of Roz just moving through the forest and learning about the world around her. It's essentially a film about finding a community, even if you don't initially fit in, and it's great seeing the impact she has on the animals. The Wild Robot also explores themes of nature versus nurture, and as dangerous as the animal kingdom is, it does not necessarily have to be. We see how hard Roz works to try and care for this goose she adopts, and Sanders puts together several beautiful scenes showing the evolution of their relationship. The humor also has the kind characteristic of his movies, with some surprisingly dark moments, but they never feel gratuitous, instead fitting naturally into the world and the narrative. The animation is gorgeous, giving a look all its own, although the visuals and storytelling of The Wild Robot do call to mind something like Bambi in the best ways. It's already been announced that sequels in the works, continuing to adapt Peter Brown's stories, and it'll be interesting where Roz and her animal companions end up next. Memoir of a Snail. Adam Elliott has shown through his animated films an ability at telling darkly comedic stories that also contain a lot of sensitivity and empathy towards his characters. His newest movie continues that as he gives an understanding about the troubles that the protagonist, Grace and Gilbert, have had to deal with. He manages to tell their individual stories in a way that probably develops both of them and explores the unfair treatment from those who take advantage of them. One of the sweetest elements of the movie comes from the friendship between Grace and an elderly woman named Pinky, and it's wonderful seeing how they support each other. The emotions featured throughout Memoir of a Snail feel earned, and Elliot is able to somehow give us something funny not long after giving us a sad scene without being jarring. Elliott's stop-motion animation style is so uniquely his, and the distinct appearances of his characters add to the appeal of his films, along with their specific Australian sensibilities. As we hear Grace and Gilbert narrate about their lives, the viewer truly gets to know them, and the movie creates the needed sympathy for them and hoping things can turn out well. And now, my #1 favorite animated movie of 2024 is Inside Out 2. The first film did such a great job of depicting the emotions residing in the head of a young girl and taking it to a lot of creative and heartfelt places. With the sequel, director Kelsey Mann successfully continued where Pete Docter left off and explored some new concepts. The idea of jumping forward to Riley becoming a teenager was one that allowed for plenty of new opportunities for gags and conflicts. The new emotions in her head provide an interesting way to delve into anxiety and embarrassment and the effect they have on someone navigating a new part of their lives and just trying to fit in. Anxiety's actions are particularly interesting to watch unfold, and the film is careful to handle her in the right way, as further helped by Maya Hawke's fantastic vocal performance. The story happening to Riley is an engaging one too, along with all the original emotions getting stuck outside of headquarters. There's so many hilarious bits too, with a highlight coming from a preschool character and his talking pouch. Inside Out 2 really shows the endless possibilities with this idea and all the places they can go as Riley faces new problems. This was a more than worthy sequel to the first movie with plenty to appreciate, and it was great revisiting these characters again and meeting new ones. As always, there are a few animated features I still want to watch that I'll definitely check out in the new year, particularly Flo and the new Wallace and Gromit movie. Though often a few of those I just don't get around to for one reason or another. But of course, there are also plenty of new films to look forward to in 2025. We'll naturally be seeing returning characters like SpongeBob SquarePants and Plankton, Nick Wilde and Judy Hopps, Porky Pig and Daffy Duck, the Smurfs, and the Bad Guys. There are also some adaptations, including ones based on Colin Malloy and Carson Ellis's Wildwood, George Orwell's Animal Farm, Dave Filkey's Dogman, and Roald Dahl's The Twits. Meanwhile, the popular preschool show Gabby's Dollhouse will be making its way to the big screen. There's a decent amount of original projects too, including a space set adventure from the folks at Pixar, a K-pop musical from Sony Pictures Animation, a story set in the world of dreams from Netflix Animation, a fantasy about a warrior princess directed by Mamoru Hosoda, and even an animated movie about talking sneakers. Although, as always, the animated film I'm most eager to see is Genndy Tartakovsky's Fixed, which I feel like I've been talking about for years now, and I'm begging any distributor to please release this. Can this finally be the year it happens? Anyway, let me know your own favorite animated movies of 2024, and I'll see you next time.